I suppose that's how the world goes. When I applied to become Vice Chancellor, I competed against 5 other colleagues, all male. And of course, some people gave me no chance at all. And I don't understand why they didn't give me a chance. After all, they've known me on this campus, they know what I've done and all of that. But I suppose this is where the gender biases creep in and distort people's reasoning at times. So that's what happened. And then finally I got the position, and it was like, oh, okay, let's see what she can do, that sort of thing. We shouldn't discourage you, because you know why you've applied, you have a vision, you have a strategy, and it's a question of focusing, and even more importantly, bringing all these people on board to let us know it's one institution, and what goes on right is what should go on right, and that the benefits inure to all of us.
You talked about not being given a dog's chance because you are a woman. I remember when your nomination came up, there were a lot of discussions. Gender advocates, for instance, were very excited. They thought that yes, another ceiling has been broken. They felt that indeed this is the time for women. Now we can have a bigger voice, we can have more inclusion. Do you feel that indeed you on the ticket with President Mahama gives women anything at all? Does your presence add anything for women especially? Actually,
you've answered the question for me, because you started by saying that a lot of the gender activists said this is our chance. And I'm also getting that in the field. I'm getting that from the markets, I'm getting that from the lorry stations, I'm getting that from Deba grounds, from the many places that we go to. I'm getting that from a lot of queen mothers, that, you know, this is our chance, you are there for us, go and help us. You know, I'm getting a lot of that. And so they see the femaleness as something that they can latch on to and hope, or look forward rather, to my presence impacting positively on what it is that they want, what they're doing, and what they can do. So that in itself, of course, is a huge responsibility. And I always respond by saying that just as we consulted with all of you, or as many of you as possible, during the drafting of our manifesto, so are we going to work together? So I'll go and ask, so what's the problem? What do you think are the issues? What do you think I should do? You know, so the benefit for me is to establish the dialogue and say that, okay, today I won't be here for a long time, but we can continue talking. And it's been interesting.
Okay, but there are some who also think that indeed, yes, you're a woman. For the first time we have a running mate who's a woman, but they feel that it does nothing to the painfully blasé attitude exhibited on the corridors of power to increase women's participation and the voice of women.
You know, when you say even women, you said one thing, and there are many things we haven't said. Same for men, actually same for people. So some may see that the person is a token. You know, a lot of our committees, there's always a clause, one of which must be a woman, which always annoys me. Who says one of which must be a woman? It means that there's something stopping the women, and something must be done, some affirmative act should be established to ensure that the women are also coming in through the door. So a lot of us have the impression that, oh, if there's a woman there, then it's just for the photo ops or so. But I'm not sure if for a position like this, you're going to put a woman there just for the fun of it, you know. And if that's what we've been doing all along, we need to stop. There are many capable women serving in all the positions we put them to. So it cannot be token. How did we become tokens? We become tokens because we have not had as much opportunity. So the important thing is to ensure that you are creating the opportunities for the women to go up by themselves. I remember those days at the university when we couldn't get women students into some of the programs, and we talked about affirmative action. And my reaction has always been the same. I'm for it insofar as there are structures that we are paying attention to, the structures that allow the girls and the women to come up by themselves. because I don't think that's a replacement. And I don't think any woman coming here to think that she gained admission because she was a woman. Right. She's here because she qualifies. And the results show. The results show that they are capable. So what is it that stops them? So all this patronizing thing must stop. We've never said a man is put anywhere for a token, because we are used to seeing them there. Okay. So we need to get to a position where we should also get used to seeing women in all kinds of positions in this country.
Okay. You mentioned affirmative action. We've experienced some pussyfooting with the affirmative action bill in Parliament. What are your genuine thoughts on that bill?
No, I think it's rather unfortunate. You see, we need a lot more public education for all of us to realize what Dr. Agri said in the early 1930s, that when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. He was male. It wasn't a woman who said that. Gender issues weren't popular then. What did he see for him to say that in the 1930s? Okay, so if that is the case, how can we be here and now we are dragging our feet about things that empower women? So what has gone wrong? Obviously something has gone wrong. So what is the problem? Now we and the rest worked on this bill. Wherever they left it should have passed this by now. I mean, should have passed this hurdle by now, but it's stopping. And it also tells us maybe we need many women in Parliament. And we need many women to understand why this is important. Yes, we can push from outside Parliament. We can scream and yell all we want, but we are not the ones going to be in there. And look at the percentage of women in Parliament. So even if they're going to vote on gender lines, they shouldn't even bother to go, because they've already lost it. So we need to encourage them, not just because they are women, but also to support them with whatever information we can to sustain them whilst they are there. It's not just enough to support them to go in there, to help them to survive, and to survive well, and to make a good impact. And I suppose that, these things cannot be changed overnight, but I don't think we are moving as quickly as we ought to.
Right. Now, in the immediate aftermath of the announcement, your announcement as running mate, we heard certain key personalities in the New Patriotic Party make some statements, them in the form of insensitivity and plain brutality. Which of these statements shocked you the most?
To be very honest, I didn't pay much attention to these things. But you see, when you talk about women, you don't expect all of us to be at the same level. We are not. And insofar as, I think sometimes it betrays a certain psychology. If we are all down there, now you want to rise. It instinctively sends waves of fear among some. Not because they don't like you, but it's because they're not quite clear what this is all about. We're all supposed to be on this line. Why are you crossing it? There has to be something wrong with you, and so on and so forth. So if you don't know why you are crossing that line, then you can fall for it and lose confidence. And then in the end, nothing goes on. So whatever they said, I think, is more a betrayal of their own thoughts than what they think they know of me.
How do you feel when Yabuabia Samoa said, and I'm going to quote him here, that Mahama does not take Ghanaians seriously for his choice of running mate?
I think it's a pity. It's a complete pity that anybody should say so, especially from a political party that also has women. And I think it was a wrong thing to say, because he sent a message to the people that they shouldn't vote for women in his party. I think that was wrong, and that was unnecessary for him to say so.
All right. You've been a running mate for a little over 3 months now.
Yes.
And you've been touring the length and breadth of this country. Have you been to any communities that you had never been to all this while?
Of course. In my own research in the previous life, I used to, those days there were 10 regions. So I used to do Central, Ashanti, Northern, and Upper West. So a little bit, not too much,
right?
Because the research is, tied to a theme, so that's what we did. But this time it's taking me everywhere. So it's not as if you are attending a funeral in a place and coming back, that sort of knowledge. This one is a different thing. It's about really observing what is there finding out what is not in the files, talking to people, and determining what their needs are. So it's a different thing.
Okay.
It's exciting. I've learned a lot, and I feel thankful that I have such an opportunity.
What were your expectations before you embarked on the tour compared to the reality on the ground?
My expectations were not too different because of the work I've done before.
Okay.
Of the work I've done for my own research, and especially for the work I did in the ministry. You know, in the ministry, we visited nearly every constituency because our schools are everywhere. I wanted to find out what was not in the reports. You know, I'm a big promoter of experiential learning. So I want to experience the situation myself and see what does a classroom experience do to this child. What is that experience even about? How can anybody capture that in a report unless you went there? So traveling around the country when I was Minister for Education opened my eyes to many things, and a lot of it has been confirmed. New things have come up, you know, especially this time it's no longer talking to parents or the children themselves or the teachers. Now it's talking to everybody else. So those days in the ministry, and I didn't go to the market. I didn't think that was part of my hobbies. But today I'm going to the market, I'm going to the lorry station. So you're getting more information from a diverse group of people.
And you get a sense that these people want the NDC back?
By all means. You see,
to what extent do they want the NDC back?
They want the NDC back because they say that, you know, in our language, they've carried water and they've carried alcohol, and now they know the weight. When you talk to the farmers, they'll tell you, oh, we used to get this free and that free, and today we can't afford them, and they say we should buy on credit, and we don't know how we're going to pay for them because their work is seasonal. It's not like a monthly thing where, you know, so they are saying no, things were better. So if you say we're coming to do the same thing, they believe us. So the credibility is very high because they know we've done it before. If you go to a place where there are cashew farmers and they tell you that all we need is something to add a bit of value to our crops, and we are going to stimulate technical vocational education to ensure that we are adding value to our produce. They believe that because actually we didn't sit in our rooms in Accra and craft a manifesto. We had gone down to talk to them in the first place. So what's in the manifesto is mostly what has come from them. And so, you know, we are walking together and working together with them. So our language is not at variance with each other. And so the level of credibility is very high.
Okay, you mentioned free this, free that. Now, when you talk to some Ghanaians as well, they talk about free SHS and the impact and relief it has brought to them on their pockets or that of a relative or a friend. This is why one of the reasons the NPP believes that it will be retained in office. Does that bother you? I mean, when you go around and you hear people talk about free SHS, and in fact the NPP is very loud on the impact free SHS has had.
I also hear parents talk about that, but I also hear parents talk about other things. I also hear parents say they don't have money for extra classes. I hear parents say their children are home for too long. I hear parents say I've had to go and rent a room for my child in a town I don't even live in. And these are worrisome issues for them. And in education, it's about the outcomes. So the outcomes will also speak for themselves. So yes, they are happy they are not paying, but they didn't anticipate some of the things that have come with not paying. So the parents are not one thing. They're different parents in different categories. We had our own Minister for Finance saying this is not sustainable, I can pay for 10 people. So he will not tell you how happy he is that there's less trouble for him in terms of paying fees. You know, so it means different things to different people. And so that's why I'll leave it.
Okay. At the launch of your manifesto, the People's Manifesto, President Mahama mentioned that the free SHS will be expanded to cover private schools, an announcement that excited the private school operators. Now, where exactly is the NDC? If you win, where will the Mahama Opoku Agyemang leadership get funding from to cover the expansion?
I like this question because every time it's like the NDC that man says playing. Nobody was interested. Nobody is asking questions now where the money is coming from to pay for that.
Those questions have been asked. They were asked before and they're still being asked.
Yes. And we'll see, you see, if you look at how it was implemented, let me go back a bit. The Constitution allows private participation in education at all levels. Perhaps the only place where the public has not participated in is the technical university, and one can understand the reason. But everywhere else, universities, we know they've been private and so on and so forth. So if we say that we are going to send it to private schools, you just need to look at what has happened and what happened. Where did all the children come from? How come we had such a huge number? Well, the huge number because the implementation did not cover the private schools. So all the kids in the private schools went to the public schools. So it's not about giving more children opportunity. It is about making it impossible for the private school to retain their children. So in order to decongest, assuming you send some of the children back to the private school and give them the same support, then you immediately decongest, and it's not even more money. It's the same money, but now you are applying it, I think, a bit more judiciously and a bit more fairly, and in a way that will inure to the learner in a better way. Okay. Because having teenage kids, we've all been teenage before, and the teenage psychology has not changed. It's still the same, just a phase everybody goes through. And if at that time you have to go to school for 3 months and come and stay at home for 3 months, and in my time there wasn't so much distraction. Maybe you had your music, you had some books, television, and that was it. But today, it's a different ball game altogether. Parents have gone to work, children are left on their own, and and there's so much attraction for them. So there are lots of parents who are not happy about that. So if you say you are going to extend it to the private schools, the buildings are there. Why are the buildings empty and you've crowded the children in the public schools to the extent that they have to take turns? When this thing started, somebody even said it was like going to church. One group will go in the morning, one group will go in the afternoon. Really? Seriously? That's not what is happening, and it couldn't have happened.
You've promised to abolish the double track system.
The double track must go.
What it must go?
It
what
must
is
go.
the NDC's alternative to the double track?
There shouldn't be a double track. The double track must be abolished, must be removed. We were building schools. What has happened to them? If we had finished those schools, there'd be more space. Listen, when we were doing these things, we did a lot of research. You find out the age group likely to go to secondary school. You have your data. You use that data. You are also living in a country with a high birth rate. And if the birth rate continues, right now we should predict the number of children in 10 years if it's constant. So you need to plan now. And that was why we're building those big schools, because even before the implementation of the progressively free, if you looked at WAEC and the GS statistics, you'd have seen that there was quite a good percentage of children who qualified by our own standards, but who couldn't go because there was no space. And we didn't anticipate, okay, so 3 months here, What we thought to do was to diversify the secondary education level. So we started putting in a lot of effort into TVET.
But all of these things were also thought of by this administration. The reason they came up with a double track system, because they found that it was more viable to run a double track system.
Than to complete. We don't think so. We don't think a double track system is helpful to children of that age. We don't think so at all. We were told that the double track is done abroad. I don't know where abroad. Our research shows that I think in one of the districts or so in California that it happens. And even they are fighting to reduce the numbers and eventually to get rid of it. Now it's on a national level in this country.
Okay.
On a national level. Why do we have a semester system? What do you need to introduce a semester system for in a secondary school? What do you need to introduce a double track for in a secondary school? Who has the, I would like to see if there's any evaluation done after the double track was introduced,
all right,
to show that is the best way to go.
Okay, I still want to stay on the free SHS because the NPP believes that the NDC has done a U-turn on free SHS. Have you really done a U-turn?
There's no U-turn. What we thought at the beginning, you see, we expected, and I think a lot of parents also did, and that is where the complaints are coming from parents. Let us not behave as if parents are not complaining. They are. Teachers are complaining. Heads of schools are complaining.
What exactly are they complaining about?
They're complaining that things are not functioning as they should. And you know the immediate reactions about dismissal or transfer and so on, that people are just trying to sabotage the government. But these are the managers on the ground who are saying that no, it's not about a U-turn.
But isn't it normal to experience teething problems with any new policy?
Yeah, we had teething problems with the progressively free. When you have teething problems, what do? You review what you are doing. When Bahama talked about review, it was said, oh, he was going to abolish. So it means they are happy. They're not going to review anything. I've not seen any reviewed document about how this has gone down well or not.
Okay. Now, but how do you move from the free SHS is not possible? Because in the run-up to the elections, and I want to give you a few quotes. Fifi Kwete, for instance, said that free SHS, all lie be lie. Lee Okran said that it will only be possible in 20 years. Even President Mahama himself said that other countries have failed with free SHS, so it shouldn't be implemented. Now you've moved from it's not possible to review.
No. Let me explain to you. None of us, or we all thought that the free SHS was going to be implemented on one thing: parents won't pay, and everything was going to be normal. And I believe that is what people said. No, it's not possible.
Okay.
Look at the numbers. Look at the number of teachers. Look at teaching and learning materials. Look at the number of labs. So if we're going to open the floodgates for everybody to go in and operate as business as usual, then no, we are not ready now. That's how I read their concerns. And lo and behold, they've been proved right. Because it wasn't business as usual. First they said everybody was going to go at once. It didn't happen. It was progressive, year by year, wasn't it? And then after that, too long after that came a double track. Nobody even understood what was going on. Because those people were saying, no, we are not ready. They didn't anticipate this. So people started asking for, okay, well, so what's the plan? When you ask for the plan, it becomes another issue. So it was like, as the years rolled by, different things were introduced. Now we are stuck with people taking turns, 3-month turns, to go to school.
Okay.
And I don't think that when the free SH was announced and parents bought into it, they expected this at all.
Okay.
And I suppose that is what framed the responses that you just read.
So you haven't done a U-turn?
A U-turn about what?
On free SHS.
We are abolishing the double track.
Okay.
It has to go.
All right. Now, I still want to stay on the education sector because you were an education minister. Your opponents are accusing you of not doing enough to advance the welfare of teachers. In fact, they claim that you worsened the plight of the Ghanaian teacher when you occupied the education ministry as a minister.
I don't understand that.
You've had these, haven't you?
How did I do that? And I always ask the unions, in what ways did I reduce your salaries? Did I prevent you from moving up? No, what was it? And they don't know exactly what. I think it's part of the propaganda, So I want to get the information. In fact, another one that is supposed to be used against me is, you cancel the book and research allowance. Mm-hmm. There was no, and I keep saying that, bring me the memo, bring me the letter. I've left the ministry. All the documentation should be there. I've been waiting for 4 years for somebody to bring me the letter that said I'd cancelled the book and research allowance. Mm-hmm. So in fact, I was surprised to see it in the NPP manifesto 2016 that they will restore the allowance. And in fact, the book and research allowance. And in fact, as part of the achievements, they said they have restored the book and research allowance. It was never ever cancelled. So you see how you can say the same thing for so long and think that everybody has believed it. We have universities in Accra. Just walk to the University of Ghana and ask anybody, or ask the registrar, ask the vice chancellor, anybody there, if the allowance was cancelled. And I'm also disappointed that some of the people in the media don't do their work, because they could have gone there to find out the truth for themselves. Every interview has been asked the same question, about, and again, the teacher allowance. And I said, who cancelled it? There was no cancellation. So when I go on radio, I said, let somebody call in. Cancellation means I was holding something and you came and took it from me. I never did that. So where is the evidence that I took somebody's allowance? What we did was to give 1 year notice that those coming next year will receive a loan and not the allowance. And I remember it was the unions that first came. It's our people, our members, and so on. They went to town. And I said, listen, they are in secondary school. They are not even your members yet. So from then on, the pressure was kept up about this allowance. What did we do? We replaced it. We even introduced the Student Plus, Loan Plus, because you know that there are students who qualify, but you have to pay your admission fee, be registered before you can get the loan. So we said, okay, so far as you can bring us your letter of admission, we'll give you the admission fee. So you can register. We've never heard anything about that.
Okay, I'll take my last question on the sector and take a break, and then we can talk about the Electoral Commission and other issues when we come back. Now, yesterday was International Day of the Girl Child. You issued a statement, and that statement, you re-echoed the need to, and I'm quoting your statement, reflect on the promise of equal opportunity at all levels of education for Ghanaian girls, and how obstacles like period poverty deny them that. Now, as a minister, how did you deal with this issue? Because still in 2020, we talk about young girls who are unable to go to school 5 or 6 days in a month because they're menstruating and they do not have access to sanitary materials. In the People's Manifesto, you said that you'll be providing free sanitary pads to young girls. But when you were at the Education Ministry, what measures did you take to ensure that the girl child enjoyed 28 days of schooling, just like their male counterparts?
That's a good question. When I moved into the ministry and we were told about the 200 schools, we started doing the concept and so on. And I said that, we need to turn this whole thing into a project. Okay. Because it cannot just be about the school, about the buildings. It has to be about many things. And more importantly, it has to be about the people, about the students who are in these schools. So as part of the secondary education improvement project, we prioritize girls, okay? The scholarship component had scholarships for 10,400. The majority were supposed to be girls. Now, out of that number, we made a provision for the girls to be given a little bit more money than the boys, so they could use this to take care of themselves during this period.
Did it have any impact?
I don't know if you were not in this country.
I was.
Immediately there was a press conference. The insults, the name calling, the cartoons. And I was asking myself, but why are we treating our daughters this way? You see, when some of us can afford things for our children, we shouldn't think everybody else can. And as a social democratic party, we are interested in the vulnerable. And as you say, so if there are 12 weeks in a term, and this girl is going to miss 3 weeks, 12 weeks is what? 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
And is going to miss a week in every month. That's already 25% of the way. Why should you sit back and say the girls in the rural areas are not doing well? Who says they cannot do well? So there's already established in research a link between that. I mean, the press ridiculed the opposition.
Was it the
then.
press?
Oh, you were all part of it. A lot of you were part of it.
I don't recall, but maybe our platforms were used.
Okay, whatever it was. But hey, it dominated about 2 months. That was all people talked about, with cartoons and so on and so forth.
Were you ever faced by it?
I shouldn't be.
Okay.
I didn't think it was useful. And I didn't think that doing things for girls was wrong. Okay, so we went ahead. And interestingly, other countries started calling, finding out, so exactly what does it mean, what can we do. Since I've been at FAWE, Forum for African Women Educationalists, we operate in 33 African countries. See how many have latched onto it. In some countries, they're actually purchasing and supplying, and they have seen the effect on the retention.
Does it hurt you that we are lagging behind in something we started?
You see, sometimes it's what we want as a country. It cannot be what one person wants. It's what we want as a country. If we always want to lag behind and go and copy what other people are doing, it's our choice. If the reverse is true, it's also our choice. You know, so others have latched on. Girls are being retained in school. They are moving up, because you can't just say that, oh, at the university you don't have enough. Nobody is born into the university. They start from somewhere. Girls are girls. Their bodies will function as they should. And if, because they don't have the wherewithal to take care of themselves, they are continuously missing, then it cannot be useful for us.
Absolutely.
And now I'm happy to see that NPP has put it in their manifesto. After all that ridiculing, we all learn. It's not a problem. We've also put it in it is also in our manifesto. And of course I was going to go into it anyway, because we started it. And we think it's a useful thing to do. Girls of a certain age, maybe of a certain environment, if you can buy for your daughter, we are happy. But if you cannot, that's not a reason, a good reason why the girl should not be in school, you know, as often as the boy, and also move up.
Okay, let's take a break. But before we go, just to remind you that we need to fight COVID-19 together. Keep calm, stay at home, and make your bill payments at PayMTN, paybill.mtn.com.gh, or pay with Momo, Visa or MasterCard, or directly using your GT Bank account. Remember that this is my exclusive with Professor Naana Jane Opoku Agyemang. People confused. Sometimes we say Jane Naana.
Never mind.
It doesn't matter.
We'll be right back. The actual thing should be Naana. But it's interesting, from school, even my passport, you know, when I have written it out, you know, somehow we think Christian names
should come first.
But Jane is not even a Christian name. There's no Christian in the Bible called Jane. But because it's a Western name, we assume it's a Christian name. These are all things we need to confront.
We'll be right back to talk about the Electoral Commission and more.
In the period, I want to see people and personal.
As others are proffering for making a change, it will be the same disappointment, it will be the same criticisms that they are making, and it's running across.
Do you think Ghanaians are disappointed in this administration?
I'm a Ghanaian, so are you. You see? And so are the people.
It's understandable to understand, to get it. Yeah,
okay.
If you say you're disappointed.
So are the people we've been working with. And you know, for our manifesto, remember that the former president did the speak out tour. It wasn't about NDC people. It was about everybody. And when we were collecting information for our manifesto, it wasn't only from NDC people. If you go to a union, it doesn't matter who is there. If you go to the market and you have a focus group discussion with the market women and the reps, it doesn't matter.
You think they're not telling you these things because you're there representing another political party? I'm sure if the NPP turned up at the same place, they would have the same sentiments about the NDC.
We don't go asking them how they feel about us.
Okay.
We don't go asking them how they feel about the NPP. That's not our concern. We go asking what their own issues are.
And the issues haven't changed?
Not as dramatically as they thought, or as they expected, or as they were promised. Okay? So it wasn't about, you know, me wearing a t-shirt and saying I'm from NDC, so tell me what I want to hear, which would have been a waste of time. It was about what the people wanted us to do.
Right.
And not about what I wanted to hear. If you go on that trajectory, you hear so many things that may not necessarily be useful for you, because that's what you want to hear. So I like the process we adopted. Meeting with the unions, writing to them, they're sending memos. If doctors are saying we have a problem with this, does it matter how they vote? I don't think so. And illness doesn't know party lines, So in the central region, the same concerns I'm hearing from the other regions, I also heard from them. And the assurance they want that things will be different. Okay, so I think that's what it's going to be.
Okay, now, this may be a bitter pill right now, but I just want to drag you back slowly to 2016. You've traveled the length and breadth of this country. I understand you're even resuming your tour today. Now, if you were asked the 3 things you thought led to the NDC's massive defeat in 2016, what would they be? And how have you, in 4 years in a position, changed these 3 things to win the confidence and the trust of the electorate?
I think I may sum all of that up to say maybe our inability to express what we were doing in non-slogan terms. Our ability,
you didn't make enough noise?
No, yes. Our ability to focus on the intangibles, because that is what makes the quality of learning and makes the quality of life. Maybe if you had put a billboard everywhere about every secondary school we built, many people would have seen it. If we had done so...
We saw the Dubai at Circle.
Yes.
We saw the rich...
And it should have gone everywhere else. Listen, if we didn't have COVID, many people would not, even in Accra, would not have known the work we did at Ridge, Bank of Ghana Hospital, the University of Ghana Medical. It took a strike or so for the hospital to be open, drawing attention. And many people didn't know. Really, you did this? Do you get me? So maybe that was part of it. Okay, so I think, but it's important that people live a certain reality and come to a certain realization on their own, not because sitting, that's what it is, but you feel and you know. And that change, I think, is more permanent and more real. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. Nobody's saying, if you do this, it's not a threat. Democracy shouldn't be about that. So that's how I'll just sum all of those things up to you. Okay.
All right. Now, you're a running mate at a time when the coronavirus has had such a catastrophic impact on economies across the world, in households here in Ghana. And we've had a president who has introduced some interventions and measures to cut the spread and also mitigate the impact of the virus on ordinary Ghanaians. Now, yesterday, the IMF said that Africa will need $1.2 trillion to recover from the pandemic losses. Now, when President Akufo-Addo introduced these measures...
What are some of them? Be specific.
Oh, I'm talking about the lockdown, ensuring that people wear the masks, and he said it so many times.
Yes.
The interventions such as free electricity, free water. There were some who applauded him. Even outside Ghana, he was applauded for those interventions and the measures to cut the spread of the virus. Yet, your party severely criticized him for his bad handling of the coronavirus and its impact. If you were in power with President Mahama, how differently would you have handled this from what President Akufo-Addo has done?
Listen, when we were in power, we were threatened by Ebola. What did you do? We were very proactive. We didn't wait for warning signs and warning by people that this thing is approaching. That was not the time we decided to have our primaries anyway. Okay? We didn't do that. We were proactive. We identified the hospitals that we thought we could get help. We ordered PPEs. And I remember
the fight. Did that?
Yes.
They ordered PPEs.
See, here you are. We did order them for the regional hospitals. And I remember the fight we had with WHO, saying that, listen, the situation is worse in some countries. You don't have any, so we don't have enough, or something to that effect. They're expensive. We were saying human life is more expensive, and we want to be ready. We did all of that. Thank God we weren't hit by it. We visited Noguchi to see what they needed. We did a lot of, we put in a lot of proactive measures. Not that we could afford all of it, but at least when we heard that this problem was happening, we put in the measures. And I suppose I'm not justifying everything, but I'm trying to say that when the pandemic hits, what did we do before the lockdown? All these big rallies that were taking place at a time when the pandemic had hit, was that a very good thing to do?
But the rallies were not only being held by the NPP, the NDC had rallies
No. They were doing their primaries. We had crossed that bridge a long time ago. What rallies were we having? So there's no generalization then. The dates are there, and we can all verify. So then came the lockdown. For me, the biggest thing was public education. I've been around the country, and I believe we all have pieces all over the place. How many people even know about this? Today.
About the virus?
Till today. I wish you'd come along with me. You see some of the pictures. How many people are wearing face masks? And when you talk to them, it's like, oh, it's the rich people who get it in Accra.
But what could have done differently? Because even here in Accra...
What I think we can do, and we don't need to wait for any pandemic. Whether people in Accra are wearing masks or not is beside the point. What we need to do is to raise the level of public awareness. Even today, we have NCCE. We have non-formal education. So read our manifesto. You'll see the links we are establishing. This public education must go on all the time. When the pandemic hits,
it does, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Not to the same degree as right now. What's our number? I don't know. Do you? Why are we out of the pandemic? Do we know? Has it disappeared?
It hasn't.
Should we be careful? Wait. When was the last time a public announcement was made? So as an ordinary person walking in the street, what am I supposed to believe? Do you get it? So these are some of the things that we should all learn from. What is gone is gone. We need to learn and be proactive. Okay, if something has happened a pandemic, that's why it's called a pandemic. It's a pandemic for a reason. We have all these radios and FMs and so on. And if you decide that only some stations will give the announcement and not others, you are shooting yourself in the foot.
To be fair, the Ministry of Information actually has had a budget for all media houses. So all media houses, no matter where they are, have benefited from the Ministry of Information.
Yes, when did they have the budget? All I'm saying is this, you see, at a time of such a threat, and a very, very serious one, as the coronavirus, it cannot be business as usual. Anybody, in fact, I was telling a friend of mine that all of us campaigning, everybody could put in half a phrase. It may go down with some people. Do you get me? And this is how serious I'm taking it. It's about life and death. You know, where else do you want to draw the line?
Okay.
So it's not about I've done well and I should be congratulated, or you haven't done well and you should be condemned. It's about where are we at right now as we speak.
Okay, so you've not been impressed with the way the president has handled
the water and electricity. I know there are places without water and without electricity, without running water. Do they also matter?
Well, they've mattered for a long time.
Yeah, but should they continue?
And nothing has changed for them.
This is the time we're having free electricity for 3 months and free water for 3 months. I don't know your history, but I don't have one. Okay? So if the time we are having it, isn't this the time we thought of those who don't have any? So it's not about governments have come and gone.
Yeah, but the coverage has
this
gone up.
Is the time we have been hit by the coronavirus. And as you say, look at the amount of money we need.
Yeah,
just to get ourselves out of the hole.
Okay.
It's not a joke.
Okay, now just over the weekend, we again experienced some rainfall, a downpour. And I'm sure you've seen some traumatizing videos and pictures of the repercussions of the downpour over the weekend. Now, the conversation, both on traditional media and social media, have been the same for a long time anytime it rains. If you peruse the documents that we've received in the past, manifestos, till this day, you do not see a concrete attempt to end the perennial flooding in Accra permanently. Is this something that has come to your attention? Is this something you've discussed?
Of course, and I also want to raise all our attention that it's not only in Accra. Okay, Ghana is not Accra.
That's true. It's more severe.
Because that's what we see. It may be more severe elsewhere, but nobody's paying attention to those people. And that is where we go wrong. What is happening in Accra cannot be acceptable. And all I want to say is that it is happening elsewhere too. Where are the images?
So what do we do? How do we stop it? Because we don't see any plan to end it.
Yeah, we have a government in place now. We have a minister in place now.
4 years ago, we
are not talking about 4 years ago. We are talking now.
We will experience next year.
I will talk about, I hope not. You see, disasters can happen. Apart from all of that, blame and so on.
Right.
Disasters can happen. Floods are floods. In some of the countries that are supposed to have everything, floods occur.
But they didn't have congested gutters like we do here. And nothing is being done about them.
If our problem is congested gutters, then we don't
not just that. Insanitary practices.
Then we don't have a problem in the sense that we know the reasons.
Exactly my point. And
if it's not about force majeure or rain just coming at a time or more of it falling than ever before, then you don't have control. But if it's about your gutters and so on,
and that's
what I expect, for example, is that prior to the rains, today is climate change, so it's difficult to tell when the rains are coming. But prior to the rains, some public education can take place. This is why I believe so much in public mass education. Can take place. So we are expecting the rains. Even if I'm selling in the market, what should I know? If I'm selling Gary, how should I protect the wares I sell? If I know, I can see that my gutters are choked, what should I do? It was the NDC government that introduced it. Friday, or every Friday? Friday.
The cleanup.
What happened? What was the response to that? You see, some things must start and be continued. I'm not saying that because of that there would have been no flood. When the president's brother used his own machines to go and dredge the Naana, what happened? So are we here complaining about floods? Who gives permission for buildings to be placed in waterways? Talk about 4 years ago, we made an effort. What happened?
I still want to stay on the elections. Now, if the NDC wins the December 7 elections, you become the first female vice president. I can only imagine the celebrations that will happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can only imagine. But we'll see what happens on December 7. You will have that single opportunity to head the economic management team. Now, your critics have said that you cannot hold your own on the economic management committee as vice president if the NDC wins, because you have no background in economics. You don't appreciate economics. You don't have the basics of economics.
I find that very funny. I'll answer in 3 short ways. 1, my critics are mostly the NPP, as you know. You didn't name them. You said my critics. But you know what you're talking about, and I know what I'm talking about. In their own party, they've had His Excellency the late Agyemang. Is that a comment on him? Was he an economist? The Vice President will chair the Police Council. Must I be a security expert? So what are they talking about? What is the economy? How did I run the University of Cape Coast if I didn't know 1 + 1? What is the economy? Listen, I'm in literature, and I'm proud to be in literature. I will never pretend to know everything, even in literature. I'm not an economist, but I understand the economy. That's how far I'll leave it.
Okay.
So they cannot say, well, is it a requirement that the vice president must be? Then who, I mean, look at the own history. So what is this about? Is it another criticism because it's a woman coming on board? Since when did that become a requirement?
If there was an opportunity to debate Dr. Bawumia, would you take it up?
Why not?
Okay. Now, you...
And if he debates economy, I'll debate him on literature. It's going to be very interesting.
For that reason, I cannot wait for this debate. It must happen, right? It must happen. Now, when you listen to commentary about you, and I remember just last week, we had the Honorable Eslo Wusu-Ekufo on 2020 Woman, and she was asked a simple question about you. She was happy that a woman is a running mate of a major political party.
Really?
Yes. You listen to your fiercest opponents and they say that you are not the problem, but it is your boss who is the problem.
In what sense is my boss a problem? Ask them to define that problem. In what sense is my boss a problem? That's a follow-up question for them. And if she's made a U-turn, it's good for her. Because I also remember the comments of where was she when people were doing affirmative or something. I decided just to stay away from it. Because I didn't see how helpful that argument was going to be.
Okay. Now,
so in what sense is my boss a problem?
Okay. I want us to focus on the integrity of the elections because President Mahama has consistently professed that the party will not accept a flawed election on December 7. And in fact, he says that we will not accept the results of a flawed election. We will certainly not look on, neither will we shirk our civil responsibility and allow EC, whether by ill intent or sheer incompetence, to usurp the people's mandates in the December 7 polls. Do you trust the Electoral Commission?
It's not about trust. I don't expect anyone, any party in this country or elsewhere to accept the results of something that is flawed.
What is a flawed election?
When the processes are not clear. When the whole trajectory is not well understood and embraced by all. As we know it, you see, this is not the first time we're going for elections in this country. We've had an IPAC for good reasons. Because you see, competition is by itself contentious. And if you, let's say football, anything at all, where you have parties competing over something, the best thing you do is to make the rules very clear to everybody. Once everybody buys into the rules, as a referee, you don't have a problem. But when that does not happen, then it leads to misunderstanding, to suspicion, to intention, and it doesn't help anybody.
Now, you do have a lot of concerns with the Electoral Commission and the processes as well. Now, when last week the EC opened filing, Jean Mensah mentioned that she was expecting President Mahama to show up to file
why
so they could engage him.
Listen, she has engaged the president before. She wanted to engage the president during the moment of filing. Over what?
To address the concerns. Don't you see that as a missed opportunity?
No.
To bring up all the issues you had raised.
Oh, at that time. That was the time she had the answers. And who is stopping her?
When she engaged him, did she get any answers?
No. And what stopped her? Why? Those who brought the documents, couldn't they have carried?
They're not President Mahama.
It doesn't matter, but the papers were accepted. And those concerns are not shared by Mahama alone. That was a missed opportunity for her if she didn't address. Because then so many other people would also have heard her. So it's not about saying that I was expecting that he should have come in person. Is it the rule? You know, so some of these comments are also not helpful. And to say that, so because he didn't come, I have answers and I'm not going to give them.
All right, so you know President Mahama better than a lot of Ghanaians. You've worked closely with him. You know the man, his character, his leadership style. You interact with him, I'm sure now more than ever, every single day. What is that one thing about him that majority of Ghanaians do not know? and should be the reason an undecided voter should vote for him and not President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo?
Actually, I'm not sure if people don't know that about him. Because you judge a person by what he does, more than what he says or what he pretends to say. We have seen him in power before. We have seen the work that he has done. If you have somebody who is as disturbed as we have always been about the traffic at Kaswa or at Circle and has worked to remove them, you will see the heart of that person insofar as human issues are concerned. If that person is passionate about removing schools from under trees so children can learn in safe environments, or raise the profile of trained teachers so you have more trained teachers dealing with your own child, you will see where that person is coming from. If that person is interested in the health of people and realizes that, yeah, you can have your card all right, but if you don't have a hospital to go to, it might be a problem, and therefore invest in health. If you have somebody who saw Ebola coming and took active steps to ensure that, okay, it may come, we are hoping it doesn't.
But we know all of
Wait. And so you see, that describes for you this person. What I have come to appreciate most about him is concern for the vulnerable. And especially a question he will ask you every time you went with a nice plan. Okay, this sounds good, but Nana, how does this help the poor people? That resonates very well with me. Okay, and he's done all of this. It's not me only talking. That is why I started with the evidence. All these roads that were faced, it wasn't only for him, it's for all of us, including those who are not decided. We all use the roads, or water to communities, or electricity. As at the time he was leaving, we were second only to South Africa in the spread of electricity on our continent. Maybe where we live we have it and we don't care. But if we're also concerned about those who don't have it, they would appreciate it, and so on and so forth. So that tells you the kind of person and what he will prioritize, and how the items he prioritizes go really, really down to serve many, many people. So I feel that this is something a lot of people know. I'm not the only one, and I've come to appreciate it even more as we have gone forward. And that is the person I know, and that is the person I'm happy to support, and that is the person I'm looking forward to re-enter the zone as the next president. Thank you very much.
Professor Naana Jane Opoku Agyemang, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Have a good night.
GH1 TV, your best experience.